I've listened to thousands of cold call recordings in one-on-one coaching sessions with salespeople, and I see three mistakes over and over again. One is sellers talk for 80% of the call, not giving the other person a chance to speak and just pitching features and functions of their product instead of telling stories about their customers. Number two is salespeople not asking open-ended questions to uncover challenges of their prospect. Instead, they ask yes or no close-ended questions, they get boring answers, and they try to book a meeting with their buyer before the buyer even understands what the meeting's about. Three is they don't listen. The person on the other end of the phone gives them some really juicy information about their current situation. But instead of digging deeper into it, they just move on to the next question or pitch, making the buyer feel ignored. So in this video, I'm going to tell you how to avoid these three mistakes and give you a clear structure that you can use on all your cold calls. But before we do that, I want to tell you why calling still works and also tell you my own dirty secret. I have a secret. I used to be a seller that relied on email and written communication and never picked up the phone. When I first started doing sales, I thought cold call was terrifying. At least with an email, if the buyer didn't like it, I wouldn't hear them shout or hang up. But then I met Lawrence Jackman, my colleague, who I've now been working with for 8 years, and saw how effective he was on the phone. He was a top performer at our old company and generated most of his pipeline from calling. But the problem is most buyers despise cold calls as most callers are not like Lawrence. They're typically someone trying to sell you a phone contract, life insurance, or sometimes even a fraudster telling you your card has been hacked and they need your bank details. But in a world of AI and automation, where you're not sure if an email or text was sent by a robot, calls show you're human by using your voice. Apart from face-to-face, it's the only truly interactive channel where you can have questions answered in real time. It's also easier to ask follow-up questions when they tell you answers like, talk to my colleague Jackie, which you can't do on email. But the reason buyers hate cold calls is that they never receive good ones. In this module, I'll tell you the 6 key parts of a call and break each one down in detail so you'll be able to make great cold calls that your prospects will actually thank you for. So, the 6 main parts of a cold call are 1, your mindset. If this is off, your tone will suck and everything else will collapse. 2, the opening 20 seconds and how to get your buyer's attention. 3, how to open up your prospects about their challenges by asking the right probing questions. 4, how to present your solution through customer stories. 5, booking a next step with great calls to action. And 6, how to be a better listener and respond to the information that your prospects give you. The most important thing on a cold call by far is your mindset. Most sellers hurt their chances before they pick up the phone as they're too attached to the outcome of booking a meeting. Now, you may challenge me here and argue that the goal of a cold call is always to book a meeting. Sleazy salespeople like Jordan Cardone will tell you, always be closing. Always book a next step and push your buyer into a corner they can't get out of. But they're wrong. Firstly, you could book a meeting with the wrong person who doesn't even have the challenges you help solve, has no buying authority or influence. This means you'll waste your most precious resource, time, speaking to the wrong person. Secondly, when you only focus on meetings, you come across as desperate and commission hungry, and the buyers will feel pressured. Some may take a meeting just to get you off the phone, but there'll be a no-show later. Thirdly, and most importantly, is you put pressure on yourself because you think a cold call is only successful if you book a meeting, and you'll feel more nervous because of it. So what's the alternative mindset here? Focus on learning something new from your call. Could be a challenge they face, a goal, or something about one of their colleagues. This is in line with the curiosity mindset that we discussed in the buyer psychology module. Then only if that new information is relevant because you can help them with the goal or challenge, then it's worth booking a meeting. So yes, of course, book meetings with the right people. That's your main target. But first focus on your primary goal of learning something new about the other person. Your mindset is important because it will affect your tone, which is why many salespeople have this weird alter ego. They're relaxed and the legendary Marcus when they're at home and with friends not doing sales. But on the phones, they become Mickey, who is uptight and annoying. Don't have 2 personalities. In the hundreds of cold call trainings I've run, what astounds me is that most sellers sound different on cold calls to when I speak to them privately. They either sound like 1, they hate their job and they want the call to be over as quickly as possible and they sound like this. Or 2, they're overly enthusiastic like a bad actor in a film, which makes them inauthentic. Or 3, they try too hard to be professional, use big words and create an illusion of expertise they don't have. Pressure also makes salespeople talk too quickly and the buyer can't understand what they're saying. So instead of having a sales alter ego, here's how to sound more like yourself. Imagine you're speaking to a colleague or someone at a networking event and just trying to get to know them better. This is a more relaxed situation where you'll feel like yourself. Speak slower by breathing between your points, and this is also going to help you relax. Think about your cold call as having different chapters and you want to pause between each one. If you've seen the pillars video, pause between each pillar. Now you know the goal of a cold call and how to speak. Let's focus on what to say if someone answers. Who is this person and why are they contacting me? That's the first thing someone thinks when they answer a cold call. So you need to answer this effectively in the first 10 seconds. This means the other person will relax and give you some more time. To answer this question, I simply introduce myself and my company. Hi Richard, this is Michael from Cosmic Growth. Then for why are you contacting me? To separate you from every other salesperson contacting them, make the reason about them and not about you. Sleazy salespeople like Jordan Cardone would go straight into pitching mode. In my case, that made it like, I run an award-winning sales enablement and training company. We work with Fortune 500 giants. The thing is, no one cares about that. They only care about how I can help them and their sales team. So instead, I use an observation about them. Here I'm going to be cold calling Richard Lane, the co-founder of Durham Lane, who we talked about in the 5 sales pillars module earlier. As mentioned then, through AI, I found out that Richard has his own sales system called Selling at a Higher Level, so I could mention that in my opener. Hey Richard, this is Michael from Growth Genie. I saw online that you have your own sales system called Selling at a Higher Level. Is that still the case? Now, remember, you can only control what you say and not what the other person says. Some people may hang up. Some people may even be grumpy and say, I don't take cold calls, leave me alone. But the idea of research is to make it more likely that they don't hang up on you and they give you 20 seconds. The main goal of this opener is just to separate yourself from the sleazy cold callers and for them to give you another minute or two to hear you out. Okay, so when you've done your opener and ideally they give you more time, what comes next? After your opening observation and question, you want to get to some type of challenge as quickly as possible, as buyers are 3 times more likely to buy because of loss aversion versus gain. But what type of pain should you use? Think about the job title you're targeting, the type of company, and how it relates to your observation. So in the case of Richard, I could say, as you spent a lot of time creating that sales system, it can be frustrating if your sales team doesn't put that into practice. This would be an example of what we call a spiritual challenge in our 5 pillars modules, because it appeals to buyers' emotions through the word frustration. A material challenge with data could be 57% of salespeople say the number of touches needed to close deals has increased, like we talked about earlier in the pillars. Now, the difference with a cold call versus email or any written channel is you always want to follow up a pain with an open-ended question to uncover if they have that pain. So with the spiritual challenge, I may say, as you spent a lot of time creating your sales system, it can be frustrating if the sales team don't put that into practice. So how are you training your sellers to use your methodology? Notice this question starts with how. In general, we want our questions to be open-ended that can't be answered yes or no, and they're useful to get your prospect talking about themselves, as well as how you can also ask what, why, or tell me more about X questions. Closed-ended questions have their place, like I used the one at the start of the call. Is that still the case? But at some point in the call, you need to ask open-ended questions because they're the ones that get your buyers talking. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, your goal is first to learn something new about your prospect, and the open-ended question is critical to make that happen. That's the end of this free video. If you'd like to have unlimited access to the full course and watch the rest of this module, including how to better answer objections, then please click the link below.